Hello! Welcome back to Thunderbolt Fantasy Reviews. Episode 6 today. We had some good backstory, some interesting planning, and a villainous team-up. I just wonder where this story is going this season because it's getting pretty good. So this episode begins with a continuation Shang, Lang, and Ten Ming's fight against Master Locust, and they are just not getting anything done because he has some kind of Star Wars force powers, making people levitate, blowing people back with just sheer willpower or something. He can bend metal with his bare hands, or like force bend metal. Because Lang goes to swing his sword at him, Master Locust just raises his hand and the sword just curls up into a spiral. That was kind of cool. So he starts taunting Shang like, "Ooh, Shang, why don't you bring out the Sorcerer's Sword Index? It's the only thing that can defeat me." "Oh, but you're too much of a weakling to bring it out." And then he does some kind of force thing where he just lifts everybody up and spins them around like a carousel. That was slightly funny and kind of awesome. So our heroes are trapped on the edge of a cliffside, and then Huáng pulls out his weapon, which seems to be a band of cloth with two swords on either end, but then again, it seems like he can summon swords from his sleeves, so I'm not too sure if that's his official weapon or if that's just some impromptu thing he did. And he's all like, "Shang, you're so weak you can't even save your friends." And he just wraps up Ten Ming in his sword cloth. Sword cloth? That's what I'm gonna call it. He wraps her in his sword cloth and just pulls her towards him, and she goes to attack him, but he summons another sword and like stabs her in the wrist, and she goes to attack again, but he slashes her eyes, and that's why she's blind. Shang is all distraught and decides to escape is the better option than to die. And this pisses off Lang so much that he summons a freaking thunderstorm and just zaps Master Locust with a big old Thunderbolt, and he grabs Ten Ming and they make their escape. So, cut back to the present, and Shang is still mad that he couldn't do anything to protect her. When they choose to take on Míng Huáng again, they'll need a plan. A good plan. So, in the meantime, they decide to go back to the Void Junction to look for 7 blasphemous deaths, and all they need to do is just wait for the leaf portal to activate. And Huáng is wondering, hey, what about Lin? Are we just going to leave Enigmatic Gale behind? And this is when Lin's Nendoroid decides to reveal himself. I thought this little exchange was pretty funny, especially when Ling Ya says, "How the hell is that thing talking? That thing is creepy." And Huáng says, "Oh, you're gonna say that? Come on, Ling, you are a talking peepa. You're kind of creepy. If a doll talking is kind of creepy, what are you?" So, picking up a plot thread from last episode, Psycho Monk Lu Zhenji is growing tired of looking for Shang and wonders if Shang is traveling through the Void Dimension, and that's why he can't find Shang. Psycho Monk reveals that he has a few leaf portals of his own and basically says like, with these, I'll be able to track him down. It's at this point when the guards from the Phoenix Light Temple come across him and are all like, "You look pretty shady. Who are you?" And after a brief skirmish between them, he reveals that he might be able to give them some information about Shang, but he needs to speak to their master first. It was at this point that I'm like, ooh, is the Yandere going to show up again? Because her showing up back in episode, I think 3, I kind of felt like there was more to her this season than just that single appearance. Back at the newly renovated Seven Sins Tower, Xing is all flipping out at Mantis and Locust. Xing is all flipping out at Mantis and Centipede for letting Shang escape. And they're like, oh, but we have another ally to bring Shang down. A former friend of his. And she is not too happy to find out that that friend is Lin. She's all like, this guy can't be trusted. I've dealt with him before, and he's a threat to villainy. And Lin just smooth talks his way out of everything. And Xing says something like, he takes joy in ruining the plan of others. And Lin responds, oh, like the time he wanted to make a doll out of human corpses. Wan just looks at both of them and says, oh, from the standpoint of a human, that does seem like a bad thing. Good thing you stopped her, Guinao. And Necro Bitch just can't take any more, and she storms off. And Lin is all like, well, I'm going to meet up with Shang later, and he won't suspect a thing. But first, I'm getting pretty tired. Time for a good nap. And he just goes off to his quarters. Although Wu the Centipede trusts Lin, Yi the Mantis doesn't. He thinks that Lin is after the Sword Index as well, but Wu says we'll make use of him for as long as possible. So, I'm still wondering, what is Lin planning? Is he planning on taking down the Order of the Divine Swarm? Or what? Because there's still Ant and Wasp left. Maybe they'll show up next season after Lin takes them down? I'm not sure. Hey, if you have any theory, I would love to hear them in the comments section. Thanks a bunch. So meanwhile, back at the Phoenix Light Palace, Chao Fang is all pissed that Lang can't be found. So she wants Wu to kill the head of the guard party to set an example that nobody fails her and gets away with it. Because remember, Wu infiltrated the Phoenix Light Palace for, I forget what reason. I think so they could be able to take over Zai Yu a lot easier? Yeah, I kind of forget this detail. So, Psycho Monk shows up and says all like, hey, I may have information about Shang that you may want to know. I know how to track him down. Do you want to form an alliance? And she's all like, ha, you're just some random peasant to me. How can I trust you? But I do notice madness in your eyes, which no one around me has, and I like that. So they decide to team up to take down Shang. Psycho Monk says that he would need a few guards to help him, and she's reluctant to do it because she doesn't know Psycho Monk. So Lu Zhenji offers, hey, maybe if I had one of your assistants to help me, somebody that you trust, we can do this. So she's like, Wu, help out this dude. And Wu's all thinking to himself, but this is the same dude that killed Ziling Yao. How can I trust him? So he decides to begrudgingly work with Psycho Monk until they track down Shang. And Psycho Monk reveals that he knows who Wu actually is, which is kind of interesting. He knows that Wu is a member of the Order of the Divine Swarm. So I'm really interested to know where this plot thread is going. And Wu basically is all like, hey, I'll work with you, but don't get in my way. So yeah, that was this episode. It was really good, really interesting. I'm really interested for next week because I don't know how these plot threads will converge on each other by the end, but it's bound to be interesting. So, come back next week to see how that will start to happen. Maybe. So, until next week, I'll catch everybody later.